420, turn your face to the moonlight. Let your 420 lead you. Open up, enter in. If you find there the meaning of what happiness is, then 420 will be. Do I even really have to tell you that Cats is no perfect movie? Didn't think so. Bye. Oh, you're still here? Alright, give me a few minutes. Oh. Okay, so full disclosure, I'm not going to spend a good chunk of this review ranting about the visual effects in this movie because, really, what's the point? Who hasn't already pointed out the painfully obvious that every cat in this movie has the most obvious human nose, gigantic ass lips, and the fact that half their faces look like they're part human, part cat, especially with Ian McKellen and Judi Dench. They especially look the least rendered out of all the actors on screen. Hell, the cut that I watched, which is on Crave in Canada, Judi Dench's hand in Wedding Ring, that shot is still in it, and it was absolutely awesomely horrible to look at. I mean, who else hasn't already pointed out that as they're singing and dancing, their heads look more like bobbleheads as opposed to actually being attached to their bodies? And who else wasn't laughing and creeped out by the fact that even though these cats are constantly horny and look like they're about to climax every other 5 seconds, the visual effects artists digitally erased every asshole and dick in sight. Yeah, except for Jason Derulo. I had to crack a few off, especially considering none of the cats in these movies have cracks to begin with. It's insane seeing how many of these actors have absolutely no pussies or any furballs to begin with, but the good news is there's plenty of tail for everybody, and the best part is when a cat gets some tail, it vibrates. But in all seriousness, if you were to change one thing and one thing only about this movie, and for a lot of people it is the visual effects, if they were as top notch as possible, if they were as groundbreaking and revolutionary as the Lion King remake, I got news for you guys. This movie still would have sucked either way, because as unconvincing as the CGI is on all of these actors, I was never surprised by it. When I saw the trailer at the Lion King remake and everyone was just like, oh no, here it comes, I just sat there, I'm like, eh. I mean, maybe that is because I'm a bigger fan of the 1998 version or the stage show than a lot of other people, because the 1998 movie that you saw on a trailer in the Barney's Great Adventure VHS, that movie is surprisingly decent, all things considered, but just look at any stage production or the 98 movie and just look at the cat designs. It's just like the movie where there are some that are perfectly passable, all things considered, and then there are others that just look fucking butthole ugly. It's really no surprise, all things considered, but at the very least, the stage shows and the original movie had incredible choreography, catchy songs, and great singing by some really talented performers. And this movie does have all three of those things for the most part, but the big difference is all of these qualities that I just mentioned, those are qualities needed for a good Broadway musical and for a good movie musical. But, as expected, there are some things that movies can do better than stage, and some things stage can do better than movie. And with this movie's case, it needed great cinematography, direction, editing, and writing in order to elevate the source material. But unfortunately, Cats has some of the worst cinematography, direction, editing, and writing that I have ever seen from a movie musical, because for whatever reason, Tom Hooper decided to use these much more gritty and realistic directing and filmmaking techniques for a movie about cats who do ballet and have no genitals but are constantly looking for some action, that it just doesn't fit the tone of the story that they're trying to capture on screen. And it definitely doesn't help that they actually tried to give the musical a story. They try to give it a 3-act structure. They try to give every single character that they possibly can a 3-act character arc, which I don't... Here's the thing. I give them credit for trying to do that, but the great thing about Cats as a stage show is that the songs are the story. They each have their own 3-act structure, and every individual cat gets their moment to shine. And if audiences can travel to New York or West End and sit through a show like that for 2.5 hours on end for 15 plus years, because Cats is one of the longest running Broadway shows, it's not like audiences can't sit through a 90-minute or 2-hour movie of the exact same thing. Plus, the other big problem is when you try to give a 3-act structure to the story and the characters where there was none to begin with, it actually does make the added elements and the added character development feel a lot more forced and rushed and incredibly bland. And it definitely doesn't help that they rewrote certain characters to fit the celebrity personas of the actors that they were portraying, and I'll get to that later on. But there were one or two things that I thought could have been executed well that were drastic changes. For one, the villain McCavity, played by Idris Elba, has much more of a presence where he's setting his evil plans into motion, and it definitely doesn't help that they actually gave him an evil plan to begin with. So I appreciate them for going the extra mile on that end, but like most of the actors on screen, when Idris Elba takes off his coat and starts dancing nude and like starts grappling on Taylor Swift, all the while he's laughing and enunciating his evil plans like a James Bond villain, you just can't take him seriously whatsoever. He was the one actor who had a certain level of dignity because for the most amount of time he was walking around with just a coat and a hat, and his green eyes actually gave him a slightly sinister presence, and he was just as ugly as the rest of the movie, so that definitely helped. But then he started to teleport, and every time he teleported he had a catchphrase like, meow! I just sat there and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? It's just ridiculous. And the other big change that I kind of appreciate was that they took a background character named Victoria, played here by Francesca Hayward, and tried to make her kind of sort of the central character. She's basically watching the musical unfold as if she's a member of the audience, only she gets to dance and sing along with them. And I like the idea, but every time Jennifer Hudson as Grisabella popped up, all I can think of was, wait, why wasn't she the main character? Why wasn't she the one observing everything and then occasionally butting in to help the other cats out when McCavity starts to wreak havoc upon the ball? I mean, Grisabella is the character that sings Memory. She's the one with the big show-stopping number, and she's the character that people can identify with the most. And plus, they throw in some extra story details about her having worked with McCavity in the past. So there was a huge missed opportunity for like a possible redemption arc that would have made her the only character with a 3-act structure. And considering if she did help out and redeem herself and win over the hearts of her former friends, it would certainly make her request for reincarnation the most legit, because one big problem with the stage show that didn't get fixed in the movie is that they didn't come up with valid ways of justifying why all of these cats are competing for reincarnation, because in all seriousness, their lives are perfectly fine. Now, there are way too many performances to judge in this review because this movie does have an incredibly good all-star cast full of actors who are really good at singing and dancing and do have some Broadway experience, like James Corden. Hell, Judi Dench was originally supposed to be Grisabella in the West End production, but she broke her Achilles tendon and then she got replaced by Elaine Paige. And then once Cats hit on London, Elaine Paige became the superstar with Memory, so a part of me does kind of wonder what would have happened if Judi Dench had actually fulfilled her part, especially judging her in this movie, because watching her as Old Deuteronomy made me wonder if she signed up for this thinking she was going to be in the Lion King remake, because for one, her design does make her look like Simba if he had been stuffed, which was absolutely hilarious to watch, especially during all of her climax faces. Hers were the best. They were the funniest, but judging her by her singing performance based on what I just told you, I wouldn't have guessed that she had got hired to be on a Broadway musical to begin with, because while her singing isn't technically bad, it's not really singing. It's the kind of singing that you do when you're at work, when the radio plays your favorite song, but you're so afraid that everyone's going to hear you and you'll be embarrassed. That's the kind of singing that's very low-key and kind of monotone, that's not technically bad, but there's nothing exciting about it when it comes to a movie musical. Same with Ian McKellen, who, Wow, I never thought I would say a 79-year-old would suck at playing a withered old man, but yeah, 79-year-old Oscar nominee Sir Ian McKellen sucks at playing a withered old man. If anything, it was as convincing as a Disney Channel star dressing up as an old man. It was unbelievably embarrassing. The lines that he's forced to say are utterly ridiculous. When he's like gathered up for the Jellicle Ball, because first of all, when Ian McKellen shows up, they just cut away to him. They don't build him up in any regard. They don't build up any of the cats. Like 5 seconds into the opening, they're all like out in the wide open. There's no element of surprise to just how fucking hideous they are, which if there was, that would make everything a hell of a lot funnier. But yeah, when he's gathered up for the Jellicle Ball and as everyone's singing and he just goes, meow, 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 I'm just... Are you being like Me Too blackmailed? Like, what the fuck is going on? Rebel Wilson was not playing Jenny Annie Dots, the old Gumby cat. If anything, the script rewrote the character just to be Rebel Wilson playing herself, as she makes all of these cheap and lazy pratfalls and says the worst PG cat puns that I have ever heard. And when you're listening to her reciting her lines, you can tell that she's absolutely ashamed to even say them, which she should. I mean, nobody deserves to get paid $1 million to say, look what the cat dragged in, or stop milking it, because this review is just going to be me going... Because as I was stoned, I was totally calm, but inside my head, I was noting every single flaw, every single major misstep, every laugh out loud moment that I get to enjoy now that I'm sober, just thinking about it. Who else? If you guys were to ask me who the worst singer in this movie was, in just 30 seconds, Ray Winstone as Growl Tiger was up to par with Pierce Brosnan in Mamma Mia or Gerard Butler in Phantom of the Opera, because wow. In just 30 seconds, dude sounds like a drunk grizzly bear who just got shot in the ass with a tranquilizer. It's a short moment, but it's probably the most painful moment out of all the singing performances. Which, that's not to say there aren't any good musical numbers to begin with, because all the things that I had mentioned before, the choreography, the singing, and the catchy songs from the original show, those three things are all good, and they're the reason that I enjoyed certain musical numbers to begin with. Memory being probably one of the more obvious ones, and Jennifer Hudson, as expected, does a really good job at singing it. She belts the hell out of it. When the music rises up to the occasion, I still got chills down my spine, and then down to my legs as they started vibrating, because, weed. But the one thing that did kind of take me out of memory is that even without the effects work, Jennifer Hudson is still really over the top in her withered facial expressions, pretending to be, like, impoverished and absolutely depressed, but thankfully her singing does save the moment. And I never thought I would say this, but all of the reviews are absolutely spot on when they say that Taylor Swift was the best part of the movie. When she sings McCavity, it was absolutely, I was entranced. That's my best way of describing it, because she sings at a much more slower pace than she does with any of her other songs, and she has this slow, sultry, and seductive voice that honestly makes her performance unrecognizable out of all the celebrity actors in the movie, which is really saying something. It does go to show that Taylor Swift has more potential and talent than people give her credit for, myself included. Now, when you direct a movie musical, a lot of really important decisions have to be made about cinematography and editing. You need to show everyone what's going on within a musical number. Who's singing, who's dancing in the background, what environment do you portray the location in, how long do you hold on each shot to show the actor singing or the dancers performing their choreography. And usually you would have the camera locked down on a tripod or a steady cam or even a big crane. You feature a lot of over-the-head shots or these wide shots that go on for a few seconds that slowly pan in on the singing character to really build up the moment. And once in a while, this movie does have shots like that, and it does have musical numbers that are absolutely entertaining as hell, like Mungo Jerry and Rumpelteazer, McCavity, the Jellicle Ball in particular. Those musical numbers, as well as Skimbleshanks, because that one does have a few moments. those musical numbers show that the choreography is absolutely the star of this movie. It was done by Andy Blankenbuehler. I have no idea if I said his name correctly, but what I do know is that he won Tonys for choreographing In the Heights and Hamilton. So dude is an incredibly talented individual, and Mungo Jerry and Rumpelteazer especially, if that musical number had the same direction, if, actually I take that back, if every other musical number was directed by Mungo Jerry and Rumpelteazer, I might have actually been recommending this movie just based on a guilty pleasure level and even on a technical level, because there are only 3 performers in the number, so it's nicely contained. They actually do reenact the story that they're telling with props and the settings that they're in this case, the house that the cat burglars are conveniently burglarizing. And they come up with so many creative ways to use staircases, beds, pillows, and dinner tables to do all these incredible acrobatic flips and twists. And when it comes to the choreography of the entire movie, I do like that it's more classical and ballet oriented than a lot of modern day movie musicals are. So the choreography is definitely the star of the show when you can see it, because Tom Hooper, for whatever reason, directs a lot of the musical numbers with these ridiculous handheld over the shoulder shots that make it try to feel like it's a fly on the wall documentary or a Terrence Malick film that just feels utterly ridiculous, and it takes you out of the shot in case anything else about the movie hadn't already taken you out of it, because the movement of the camera is just way too distracting to focus on who's singing and what they're singing about. Because there were a few times, even if I was sober, that I would have absolutely no idea what they were singing about, because all the technical achievements, if you can really call them that, were way too distracting. And in regards to the editing for the fast-paced musical numbers like Rum Tum Tugger, which is my favorite song of the Broadway show, they just felt boring for a variety of different reasons. The first one being, the fast-paced musical numbers go by so quickly, and the editing is so jumbled and Olivier Megaton inspired that I was trying to count how many shots lasted for at least 5 seconds. It doesn't help if you're editing for a musical number lasts for less than 5 seconds, because the audience isn't going to be able to tell who's dancing. They're not going to remember what the moves are, and there's going to be no entertainment value to it whatsoever. Not that there was much entertainment value to it to begin with, because with the slower musical numbers where it's just one actor in the center frame singing in this empty, open, and useless background for like more than a couple minutes, the final finale with Judi Dench singing about the cats, it's just her in a wide shot where she's looking at the camera, but everyone else in the background is just going like it's for filler, because I don't understand why Tom Hooper holds on these shots for absolutely no purpose. It worked in Les Mis because there were actual human beings in actual locations. This is CGI cats in a fake CGI background that doesn't even look all that interesting. It would look a hell of a lot more interesting if people were in the background, but they weren't. And even when they are, Hooper films the bigger choreographed dance numbers in such huge and empty wide shots that when a character is singing, they're so far away from the camera that you can't actually see them singing. And they're overshadowed by all the performers doing their ballet, which there's way too many ballet performers in a given shot that you can't even really focus on what they're doing half the time. You know what? I think that's really all I got. I knew I was going to get a bad movie when I decided to watch Cats for 420. I had no idea how much the edibles were going to make my experience feel a hell of a lot better, because even though I've complained nonstop about it, I will say this. Watching Cats when you're as high as a dog is kind of like watching a good scary movie when you're sober. Your skin is constantly tingling, your heart is absolutely racing. Everything just looks so grim and bleak that you're just sitting there in suspense wondering what's going to happen and what the next major fuck-up is going to be. And I gotta say, just on an entertainment level, I would give Cats a 3.5 out of 5. I think this is going to be like one of those stoner movies that I watch at least once a month, because I've seen the McCavity number like dozens of times as I was getting stoned, getting ready to go to sleep, because maybe it's the fact that McCavity is a whole number about criminals drugging innocent people and them hallucinating and dancing along, which was the exact same vibe that I got during the good musical numbers throughout the majority of this movie. And yeah, on an entertainment level, I would give this a 3.5 out of 5, but just as an actual movie and judging it as a sane and sober person, Cats gets a 1.5 out of 5. It's one of the ugliest looking musicals I've ever seen. It just completely misses the mark on so many other things, and just judging the movie by the effects is honestly not doing it justice, because there was a lot of shitty effort in it to begin with. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a really long time since I've posted a video, but life is hectic. What can I say? If you have seen Cats, either sober or shitfaced, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews. This weekend I'm going to have a kind of sort of rant about how the Best Animated Feature is probably the most popularity-driven award out of all the Oscars. I'm rusty from not doing this for a month. What can I say? And yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out my other videos at Sharp Edge Cinematics. Take care.